Hi, welcome to the Blacksmith shop. This is Titan, this is Jade. They're our shop dogs. You're going to see them throughout our videos. And so don't be alarmed when they take over the video. Go lay down now, guys. Go on. For 40 years I've been a blacksmith, full-time blacksmith, and I've been blessed in a lot of different ways. I've got 4 children that have decided that they want to stay in the shop with me. They're grown now, grown adults, all skilled in their own way. And throughout this series, you're going to see each of them probably and the different things that they can do. Through our school, Southern Ohio School of Blacksmithing, we run into a great number of students. And we find a lot of people that really want to start pursuing blacksmithing skills or start their own shop or just have a really awesome hobby. What I would like to do is offer some of the things that I have learned over the years and be able to pass those on so that somebody just starting out doesn't have to struggle and can then start to develop their skills and their techniques and start to do really amazing, great things. Each week we're going to try to post something. Sometimes it's going to be involved, sometimes it's going to be really simple. I'm going to start out with some of the simple projects so that you can go home, reproduce them, and then have the feeling of accomplishment of being able to create something really awesome with your hands. So today what we're going to do, this is getting close to Valentine's Day, so the projects that I chose this time have hearts in them. And the one item that I would like to make for you today is a heart pendant. So if you have somebody special in your life that would really appreciate that, this is a cool little project. It's not that time consuming. The reason that I'm talking through this video is because there's a lot of information that I have to show you. Making hearts is probably one of the most difficult things that people struggle with to start out on their own. Unless somebody can show you how to make them, the easy ways to make them, and what to look for so that you can make a beautiful, nice heart. Now this heart is probably one of the smallest hearts that we make, and you can make them into bigger hearts. You can make heart door poles or drawer poles, or you could make heart hooks, or you can make heart jewelry, heart belt buckles, anything that you can really apply a heart in a lot of different ways, curtain tiebacks, that sort of thing. So I'm going to show you this little heart hook today. If you want to learn more about hearts, we have our videos you can order online. We have 2 videos. This one here is the first one that says how to swing a hammer like a girl. It was our first video. This goes over a lot of the basics of blacksmithing, how to swing your hammer, how to avoid injury, how to move steel, how to start a fire, a lot of the basics that you need to start forging. The second one is hot tips for the blacksmith, and in this it shows you all the different hearts and the leaves and scrolls and that sort of thing. So both of these are available on our website for $12 if you're interested. So today's project is going to be a pendant, and it might be this exact pendant, or it's going to be a little variation. And right here is the raw material. This is actually a kit I sell, if you're interested. Not really, I'm just teasing you. This starts out as 5/16 wide, 1/8 inch thick, and there's some very key things here that I'm going to go over with you on the chalkboard that are really important for your heart to be able to turn out like that. If I can walk through this with you and you follow the directions, then I think it's going to come out pretty easy. So let's go over to the chalkboard. Okay, these are some key items that are really important for you to make this project. What we have is our material, which is 5/16 by 1/8 inch, and this can be out of bronze, it can be out of stainless steel, it can be out of mild steel. That's what we're using today, is mild steel. Comes in at 12-foot length, and it really doesn't matter how long you cut this for this project. So here's the key things. You take your material, you have to take a bandsaw and you split this, but you can also put this in a vise and then use a hand hacksaw to cut this. But there's a very, very important part about this splitting that I'm going to share with you. Once you split this down to 1 1/8 inches, you're going to draw each of these arms out to 1.5 inches, and they have to be exactly 1.5 inches. If you make one longer than the other one, your heart's going to end up looking like this, because one piece is going to have more material than the other. So it's really important to make this balanced. This heart is going to be bent around a 3/8 inch pipe. So the thickness, the splitting, and the drawing out is all relative to what it takes to go around this pipe. When you go to measure this, this is going to be hot when you draw these points out. So if you use a measuring tape and you put a hot piece of steel against this, then it's going to eventually burn off your numbers. So what I have done is I take a piece of steel, and this has got a series of codes, which I understand. So what I do here is I need to draw this leg out to 1.5 inches, and so my first line with a single dot is 1.5 inches. And I'm going to show you how important this tool is. You've got to make this. I put a little hole in it hanging on the wall, and if I'm making a larger heart and I have to draw it out to 3 inches, I go down to the double dot. 2 3/4 is the single line with a dot above. However you want to customize that. This is about 25 years old, and I use it whenever we're doing hearts. Now this is a really invaluable tool for our shop. This is a portaband. I've got it clamped tight, but not so tight as to crush the handle in our leg vise. Now, right here you're going to see this is my mark for 1 1/8. If we're going to do production, I'll have a stop back here where I can do them one after another. But right now, just for the demonstration, I have 1 1/8. You want to do your best to start the blade right down the middle. Now, if you're off a little bit, it's okay. But here's the key. You've got to stop in the middle of your material at the end. If you don't, it doesn't matter what you do, your heart is always going to look unbalanced. So watch how we do this. Now you're going to see a little bit of a variation here, and that's not that critical. Stopping in the middle of your material is the most critical. Throughout this video, you're going to hear in the background more hammering. That's my son-in-law, David. Look over there. He's working on a hook order that we have in his own shop area. So that's not just made up static sound. So I'm using a 1.5-pound hammer on this project. I don't need a very heavy one. Now watch what I do. I reach across my material, and I just tap that side down, and I tap this side down, just enough to spread them. Now, working against the edge of my anvil, I can spread these just enough to be able to work on them. I didn't hit that straight down and make it a right angle because that's going to give you a heart that doesn't look so nice. You want to keep this a very soft bend right here. So I just ricocheted it, opened it enough to be able to work on it. Now I'm ready to come up on my near face, on my near edge, and I'm going to draw this leg out. Then I can spin it around and draw that leg out. I'm going to work on one side at a time. You want to make sure that you don't hit your anvil. And don't go too far in one direction. Take a few hits so that you keep this a square point right down to the edge. I'm beveling my hammer just a little bit so that I stay out of the end here, the joint, and the Y. Bring this right to a point, which is going to be about a 16th. It's going to be less than an 8. And there is my nice point. I have a nice straight line going from the tip down. There's no bumps in it, no shallow depression. So let's see how it came out. If I take my 1.5 inch mark, which is the line with a single dot, and I lay it right into that crotch, I am almost exactly where I need to be. Now I'm going to knock these corners off without really changing my length because I want it to stay 1 1/8, or 1.5 inches rather. So when I get down to the very tip, I make sure there's no twists or squares. And I hope you can see that. It goes from square to completely round. We're at 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to work on the other side to match it. No. Here's something, we're gonna talk about quality now, right now. Look at right here. If you can zoom in really close on that, you can see where the edge is rolled over and it's got this little seam. It kind of looks like a crack. It's not a crack, but the consumer, the person getting it on the other end, may think that's a crack. So what I would like to do is I'm gonna hammer down this face and smash that to get rid of that. What that actually is when I rolled over the edges that created that seam. That was really tricky because I wanted to do that without really gaining any length to my arm, but I was able to get rid of it. See how nice and smooth that is on both sides, so that won't show. I'm just going to remind you, I know many of you know these things, but some of you may not have figured it out. When you're talking about your leg vise, what you want to do is always clamp something in the middle of the jaws, not off to the side, because that's going to twist your jaws and put undue stress on your threads. So you don't want to really do that. We're going to work right in the middle. Now look here, this is the heart jig for the size that we're using for the heart that we're making. I know this looks like a 3/8 pipe welded to a piece of scrap material, but it's not. This is a highly tuned heart making jig. So if you see one of these on a scrapyard, make sure you pick it up because you're going to want to have it. The next thing you're going to want is a pair of good needle nose pliers. I'm going to bring it right to the edge and I'm going to pinch the very end with my needle nose as I work this around. And as I go, I'm just going to feed it until I bottom out. See where I hit that other arm? Now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to gently pull this back open because I have to create enough room that I have room to work on the other side. It's not that important. I'm really just bending this out of the way. Now just for housekeeping, I'm going to keep this flat, just for ease for me. I'm going to pinch the end, I'm going to hold it, I'm going to work it around until this arm hits. I'm going to come over here in about the same distance from the opening here. I bent it back, now both are out of the way. I'm going slow because I'm explaining this, but these hearts go really fast. I have both arms heated up. I'm going to go back to my jig, grab the end, pull it around to about my center line. I'm going to stop this in about the center. I'm going to do the same with the other side. Getting closer. Just work it back and forth, keeping that opening. Now look, we're almost exactly where I need to be. Now I'm going to stop there because I want to flatten everything, and then I'm going to tap these together so that they just touch. Now this is a nice heart, but what I have discovered years ago was by giving this a little bit more dimension, changes it from an okay heart into a beautiful pendant. It gives it another dimension. So watch what I'm getting ready to do. I'm using the rounded face on my hammer, and I'm going to do one at a time just so you can see it. Now you're saying, oh, now it's really ugly. But we're going to touch it back up on our jig. But what I've just done is given this dimension. Two important things that you're going to see here is I didn't let my hammer hit the tip. I left that to a point, and I didn't let my hammer creep down in here into this area. So all I did was flared this outside. Now I adjusted the light on this one so you can see it a little better. So I'm going to do the same thing to this side. I'm going to stay in the same areas. Now I've worked on the outside and the inside line, and if you notice, the lines right here are really soft and beautiful. Look at that line, both sides. Now this is wonky out here, but we're not worried about that because I'm going to set this back on the jig, close them back up, make both of them meet beautiful. But do you see how These hammer marks are a beautiful accent to the piece of jewelry, whether this was stainless or whether it was bronze or even steel is going to look really, really nice also. The ends have passed each other, so I'm going to come back in here towards the crotch here and open this back up so that they can clear each other. And now I'm going to take another heat because I want this to be really, I don't want to force this. I'm going to take another heat and clean this one up. The thing is, this material is so small and thin that you only have about 15 seconds to work this. So you've got to have a plan in your mind of where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish before you have to go back in the fire and reheat. It's just going back and forth until you get them to meet. So we're going to close this up with a hammer. So if you can see right here, this arm needs to come down so that it meets this one, because I really like the shape of this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the direction of my hammer. I'm going to hook this heart over the edge of my anvil. I'm going to take my hammer and move it up into this area. And if you watch from the side, as I hit backward against the anvil, it'll move right into place. Do you see that? I'm going to use this spring fuller that we made so that I can keep my lines nice and round, smooth. So there's our start. What we want to do is bring this down to a point. So what I'm going for is trying to get this line to stay rounded. Don't worry about this opening because we got a jig to go back to. But I just want to neck this down. I keep the heart cold so it doesn't move so easily. And now what I'm going to do is just nibble it. The spring fuller made really light work of this. It's so easy to distort this heart. I want to keep clenching it when I bring it out and go right to the anvil. But you want to get your hammer right up in here, right next to that heart to soften that edge. There, see how nice and smooth that is now? Now let's take off some of the edge, clean it up a little bit. Do a lot of little heats and you can move this material exactly the way you want. Now I think what I'm going to do is cut this off, turn it around, and then draw it out to a point. There's no sense in putting my finished design on there yet until I'm done forging this end. This is a super small piece, so make sure you have good fitting tongs. I'm going to clamp it as tight as I can. I'm going to use tong clips so I don't drop it into the fire and have it disappear in the abyss. And then I'm going to draw this out. I'm going to keep my hammer away from this very corner here because if I hit that, it just collapses the heart more. What I'm really aiming for is just to bring this to a nice gradual point. Oh, look at that curve. Isn't that beautiful? See how this is a nice straight taper around here, and this is a nice following the same? That gives me a lot of freedom to just put a little bit of a recurl in there and finish that piece. That's going to look beautiful. This is really delicate work, so I'm going to use a very small ball peen. And I'm going to work against myself and make sure that my blows are always directly across from my anvil. So there's a pretty nice, I think I'm going to roll it just a little bit tighter. Now I could keep hitting this, but I choose to keep taking another heat because I want this to be as smooth as I can get it. See how nice that is? Now I think I might adjust it with a needle nose. There's nothing wrong at all with using needle nose pliers. It's just another tool in your supplies. You just want this to be perfect for whoever gets it as a gift. Yes, there, I think that's what I was looking for. We're almost there. Now, one last thing I want to do is texture this. We already have some hammer marks on it. If we use a ball peen to texture this, as you wear this pendant, the high parts of the depression from the ball peen are going to be shiny and the low parts will be dark, and the contrast is really a beautiful texture. So let's try that. I'm using a very small, very pointed ball peen, and I'm going to work on one side at a time. You can see how the light reflects on that. Now I'm going to do the other side. So it doesn't look like a flat piece of steel. I'm going to texture this very end because I think if you textured the heart and you left the tail not textured, it would just look weird. It just wouldn't look as good as... So we're going to soften this edge, come around. There, the whole thing is textured. Now, we're done moving it, so let's flatten it. Then I'm going to put it on the jig and bring it to both equal sides again, and then we'll call it. One thing I noticed is the lower tip is heavier than the top one. So I'm going to take this chainsaw file and I'm going to come in right in here and I'm just going to reduce that just a little bit. I'm all about detail, and especially if this is a beautiful piece hanging around somebody's neck, they're going to want to get really close to it. So it better be just perfect. Going to lightly reduce its mass so that it matches better. Oh, much better. Now let's wire wheel it, buff it, and we'll see our finished project. Let's talk about quality for just a minute. As I was wire brushing this, I noticed this depression right here, and that's from the tongs. When it was hot, the tongs dug in. So I'm going to heat this up just a little bit more using my ball peen. I'm going to blend this in so that you wouldn't see it. It'll become texture instead of a... There. Now I'll be able to sleep tonight. There you have it. There's a very nice, easy project that you can do. If you would time yourself, it should take about a half hour. It'll make that someone special in your life just feel awesome for Valentine's Day. I'm going to make a dozen of these, and I'm going to put them on my website. If you are interested, you can order them from me, or here's my challenge. I'd like to see you make your own. And then send us a picture so that we're going to start a new bulletin board on our webpage. And all of the students or people that are not students, but just following us on YouTube, I'll post them. If you like what you've seen today, please subscribe to our channel, share with your friends, and then hit that notification bell and you'll be able to see all of our new videos when they come out. Let's continue to learn together, and until next time, just keep on hammering.